Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Matia Johnson of Innovative Minds Media. Matia, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Matia so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing.
Mhm.
And Matia is a native Washingtonian, strategic communication specialist, visual design guru, screenwriter, and newlywed. She has an undergraduate degree in English and in communications and master's in producing film and video. With over 10 years of experience in publications, program development, and communications in both the government and nonprofit field, she has developed a niche for branding and has established Innovative Minds Media, DC's premier branding agency for small business startups. Innovative Mind Media specializes in digital branding, marketing, and small business tools for creatives, those who are looking to open their own businesses and take their businesses to a different level. And as a rising entrepreneur herself, Matia continues to trust in God, determination, skills, and passion to see her dreams and other people's take the shape of reality. Matia, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am ready. Hello, I am CEO.
Awesome to have you on the show. You're doing so many phenomenal things. So I wanted to kick everything off by rewinding the clock a little bit. Tell me how you got started with your CEO story.
With my CEO story, honestly, it started off when I was a little girl. I've always been into creative writing, and then I always knew that I wanted to move forward with being my own boss at some point, being an entrepreneur. I knew that the 9 to 5 behind the desk life wasn't exactly for me, and that it wasn't going to be for me for the duration of my life. And so I just kind of kicked into gear. I feel like I'm a natural born creative, and that's just kind of like the blood that's flowing through my veins. So that's just what I have my passion about.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate, you for following that, because I kind of felt like when I was getting started, I felt like I had some of that blood in my veins too. And I kind of felt wrong for feeling that way. But I think the more I talked with other entrepreneurs and business owners, the more I felt at home. And I was like, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. There's so many other people that kind of feel that exact same way.
Exactly. There's a nation out here. And, not a diss to people who, have done corporate jobs all their life for 30 years, 20 years. Not a diss at all. By all means, make your money how you make your money. But I just, stand for what I believe in when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So, that's like my rite of passage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it gives people kind of permission, because I think so many times, especially when you feel that way and it's different than, maybe everybody else around you, you feel kind of bad for wanting to pursue that. But I think when you step into that and you hear many people like yourself that are able to do it and celebrate other people that are doing it, that gives you a certain level of excitement and encouragement to take those steps.
It does. It does, definitely.
Awesome. So I wanted to drill down a little bit deeper. Could you tell us a little bit more about your company and what you're doing to kind of help support the community?
Yeah, so I am the CEO of Innovative Minds Media, and it is a strategic communications and branding company right here in the DMV. We call it DMV, but DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And it's a baby. It is a baby. It's been around for about 2 years, and we recently launched our first premiere issue for our magazine. So I was always looking for, okay, so how can I make myself different? How can I set myself apart? Because in DC, there are so many different branding agencies. I mean, it's just like in New York, there's like a Subway on every corner. So, I mean, like, how can I make myself, stand out in this crowd? And so I said, hey, well, I'm a really good creative writer, and I want to stay true to form with that. And so why not just create a magazine that can showcase these different entrepreneurs and these fashion designers and these comedians in DC who are right here, making a name for themselves. So I think it's a great way to showcase a great mixing bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I get so excited about, in this day and age, especially, is that we have so many different kind of platforms or ways we can try to help out one another, talk about like all the awesome things that people are doing. And I think there's not enough kind of quality, magazines and the way people are creating great things to be able to kind of capture them and showcase them, give them a platform to talk about their story and everything that you're doing. So that's why I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And I know you might have already touched on this. So it could be for yourself or for your business, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
I definitely think that I give a platform where entrepreneurs can be heard and where they can be showcased, because sometimes it's really hard when, let's say, you open your business just last week, and especially during with all of this going on with the coronavirus, and sometimes people are like, feel like they're standing in a crowd trying to scream at the top of their lungs and just not being heard. And I feel like IMM gives those entrepreneurs the platform to be heard and to be respected and to just showcase their talent, because at the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to do that, I often say the name of the game is visibility. And I think so many times people are trying to get their name out there, get their voice out there, talk about what it is that they do.
Yeah.
So having ways to do that is incredibly important.
I agree. And it's, back in the day, like 2008, 2009, we didn't have Instagram. You know what I mean? Like we just barely were getting on MySpace. So we're in a very heavy social media world right now. And as millennials, we take advantage of it. That's like our means of business. A hairstylist, she's going to post on Instagram thousands of pictures of her work in hopes that someone will see it. And she's going to use hashtags. And a fashion designer, he's going to use hashtags, whether if he decides to use Twitter or Instagram. So, I mean, it's just kind of like our time now that we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the platforms and the tools to some degree are there for us to use, and just making sure that we're using that and we're dedicating our time and, experience to, getting our name out there is incredibly important. So that's why I love, what it is that you do, because correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you have a gift to be able to see kind of like the brands within the people that you're featuring, but you also are able to kind of provide those skills to kind of help them get their name out there as well and cement exactly what makes them unique and their own secret sauce as well.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's exactly what I have a heart for doing. So, I mean, it's just more than just branding and strategic communications. There's a method to it all. And unfortunately, it's a lot of entrepreneurs who are not familiar with that method. So I think it's important to each one teach one. And I'm all about doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, and sometimes it could be, at least I find sometimes when you're so close to what it is that you do, like you said, the hairdresser that is, doing, they're providing their services may not be able to kind of step away to understand exactly how to communicate what he or she might do for their potential clients.
Yeah, completely. and it's like nowadays you have to be present, whether if it's Twitter or Facebook. I don't even know if there's anyone else out there who's still using like Vine or Periscope or anything like that, but you just have to be present. Branding is actually a part of social media. So that's what a lot of people don't realize. And it could be hard at first because you're juggling so many things. You're trying to write a business proposal. You're trying to write a marketing proposal. And you're like, oh, crap, I do have to promote my business. How do I do that? And now that we're in such a high social media society, I can't even remember what it was like in like 2006 and 2007 for people. I have no idea what they did. I think they did like newspaper ads and all that. You remember those?
Yeah, I do. I do a little bit. That and maybe like passenger pigeons. They carry on messages and stuff like that.
Flyers.
Exactly.
Well, funny enough, because some things never die. People still put flyers on car windshields and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of a way to kind of get out there, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to speak the language to what everybody else is speaking and understand what everybody else is using. But you said something I wanted to kind of hear a little bit more about. You said that a lot of people don't realize that social media is part of branding. Can you expand a little bit more on that for people that might feel that way or might have those same questions?
Yeah, completely. And I'm glad that you resurfaced because, for instance, everyone's always on their phone. You get on the metro and the phones are up. I don't know if people like have the newspaper in front of them anymore, but not really. So you get in the morning, and if you're doing a morning commute, you're on Instagram and you're just scrolling. You're not even looking at anything in particular. You're just scrolling, and you hit up some celebrity's page, or not even a celebrity. Like, let's say if it's like someone local who just recently launched a bar, and they're posting drinks, and you're like, oh, wow, look at like the aesthetics on their page. Honestly speaking, it's a method to it. Same thing with branding. You don't want to use a lot of colors. Like Coca-Cola. Everyone knows Coca-Cola for the famous like red and white, the cursive on the can. And you just really have to get something that speaks to you. So when you're doing your social media page, you have to continue speaking for you and stick to your brand colors and stick to, like, if it's pink and white, let's say if you have like a dog grooming shop for poodles in particular, you want to stick with the pink and the white and the cream. It just kind of flows better. I wouldn't expect to go to an Instagram page with someone who has a poodle grooming shop and see like black and skulls, and I'm like, well, what is this, for Rottweilers? Like, we have completely thrown ourselves off of what we're trying to be here. Your brand is all about your personality, and it's supposed to be the first language you speak.
That's really, really powerful. I love the brand is the first language you speak. And you're absolutely right, because I think when you start thinking about it that way, if you understand, exactly what your brand is and have clarity around that when you're, on Instagram, or you're on Twitter, or you're on Facebook, or you're on your website, and in so many different ways that you can communicate, it's consistent. You're not, having the skulls when you should have the pink and the white, as you mentioned, on your website. It's all consistent and speaks the same language.
Exactly. I mean, it is such a thing called a rebrand. I mean, it happens. A lot of companies do it. I mean, I think a couple years ago, IHOP did the burger thing, and then became like IHOP, which was really cute. That was great branding, just turning the P upside down to become a B. But the thing is, it's just almost like you don't want to do too much of that, because, see, people invest in a brand because it begins trust. Once you keep rebranding, or say, hey, I think I want to go with these colors this year, or this color, that color, people are like, well, who are you? It's too much inconsistency going on. And people hate inconsistency. People listen, people are very simple. Just stick to your slogans, stick to your mottos, stick to your colors, stick to the community, the customer service that you want to convey. And then it's just easy. It's like baking a cake. I mean, it shouldn't be that much brain science.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know definitely you can get overwhelmed, I guess, just with the amount of things and trying to overthink it a lot of times. But I love how you talked about, that promise and that consistency piece. Because I think, as you mentioned, if you're continuing to change every single month, like people are changing, their socks, then you're going to get that kind of confusion. People are going to know what you stand for. They aren't going to have that trust because they're not going to know what you're going to be tomorrow. So I love how you kind of, broke that down, and how you do that, of course, for your clients as well. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
You know what? I am a big reader. And I'm not talking like iBooks and like a Kindle and stuff like that, or tablet. I'm talking about like back in the day when people actually bought a book and like held it in their hands. Honestly, there is a good entrepreneur book from the Entrepreneur Company that I think really helps people start off with businesses. It's a little old school, but like I said, like some things really never die. And so a lot of this old business stuff from back in the day, like whatever, like 1995, is still being used. I feel like people should still know about like how to draft a proper email, so the basic stuff that surprisingly you forget about.
Yeah, and there's definitely a place for that, because I think so many times those foundational principles we kind of lose sight of. And I think that when you make sure that you're continually kind of looking at those and continually chopping at the tree, so to speak, and getting better at your craft from an overall business standpoint, that can only help you, whether you're drafting an email, helps you to communicate, or you're talking on a podcast, or you're sending an Instagram post or whatever. When you kind of go back and understand those basics, it kind of will translate to so many different platforms and ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And so now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And I know you gave us loads of nuggets already, but I wasn't sure if there was something you might say to a client, to your younger business self, or just something that might be around branding or business related.
Sure, definitely the clients. Don't undersell yourself. Don't undersell yourself. You know, a lot of times we're really hungry for business and when we're new. And so we'll do things like, you know, discount for the whole summer. And you don't want to do that, because there are people out there who will buy into your business just as long as you put yourself out there the way you are supposed to do it. You know, develop those unique relationships that you're going to need. And you definitely don't need to undersell yourself to do that. The real people to buy into your business will come. There's nothing wrong with a little discount here and there, but, you know, believe in your product, stand true to your product. You don't always have to undercut to get the sale.
Nice. I love and appreciate that advice. And let me ask you this, because for whatever reason, it was popping into the conversation we had earlier where there's synergies in that. So I feel like I've heard people say, like, you know, when you buy certain high-end products and services, you're buying those high-end products and services. You're not buying the less expensive, the discount version of it. So a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, your brand can be related to what you're doing. If you are constantly discounting your services, to me, unless your brand is that, you could be potentially confusing clients and customers, and maybe even negatively affecting your brand.
Definitely, because if you're so used to, you know, cutting corners and doing discounts here and there, say when you finally do say, you know what, enough of this, I'm going to stand for what I believe in. But then, like, there's still word of mouth that happens. The word of mouth is actually the best form of business and promoting your business. The word of mouth goes around and people are like, oh, you know, there's this, we're going to just stick with the poodle shop. There's this poodle shop that's new in town, and, you know, and they always give discounted prices, and they're actually, they're overselling, you know, and then people go and then they're like, well, actually they're not anymore. They've raised their prices to like the umpteenth power. And so then you kind of, when you think that you've done something great, you kind of taint your customer base a bit, because people love to get like a lot for a little bit of money. And so then there goes that branding, oh, they're not being true to form. So I think it's just important to stick with your guns if possible.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think I appreciate you for breaking that down, you know, because I think so many times, again, as you said in the very beginning, of understanding what branding really is and how it manifests itself in so many different ways. I think so many times people, and I don't know if you find this experience, think it's just like your logo or the way it's designed or things like that, but it really manifests itself in so many different ways, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. A logo is nothing but a picture of your business, honestly. It is not in any way, shape, or form like the definition of who you are and what you stand for. Just like I tell people, when you're running a solo business, for instance, like a stylist, you by any means should never go to a networking event looking like you kind of rolled over and you forgot to take your morning coffee, because first impressions do matter. They really do. They're lasting. And I know it's cliche, but it is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd be surprised what people say to themselves in their head when they shake hands with the stylist. Because nowadays, people aren't even exchanging business cards anymore. Your business card is your phone. I went to a networking event in D.C. last summer, because obviously the summer is short. And people were whipping out their phones and like, hey, what's your Instagram? You know, that's just how it is now. And I'm like, remember the days when we used to just waste our money on printing and like design and do all these business cards? But really, you know, I think it just depends on the person.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
not go to a networking event without a business card, but I'm perfectly willing to flip open my phone too. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a form of communication and getting your information out there. So you have to make sure that you're flexible in order to do that and know, who you're communicating with. So
Exactly.
definitely appreciate that. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So CEO, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Ooh, being a CEO means to me just being a person. I'm a person, a full body person. Means that I get up and I have a 9 to 5 that I go to just like anyone else. And so with IMM, I kind of stand strong with that. Like by no means am I telling people that, hey, quit your job tomorrow. Da, da, da. I think that with entrepreneurs, it's like a fascination. Like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job and business is booming. And what happens when it's not? So I just tell people always, be a person, think smart, and strategize. Don't quit your job tomorrow, because once you quit your 9 to 5, this is your business. You can't just call in sick.
Mhm.
You can't just be like, I don't want to come to this meeting, or, 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late for client meetings. You just can't do that, because that's ultimately going to affect your brand. So yeah,
Yeah.
being a CEO means just being a person, having some fun, you know, uh, taking some time for your mental sanity as needed, and just don't forget to remember the passion that you have for it. Because once the passion goes, then it's just kind of like, what is it all for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have that alignment where you understand like what you're passionate about, what it is that you do, then you don't, well, sometimes it happens, but you don't have it as much where you're like, I don't want to go to this meeting. I don't want to, wake up. I think that's why, you try to have that alignment, but it's definitely, so true that you want to make sure that you have created something that you want to actually go through and you understand exactly what it is to kind of run a business, as you said as well, too. But I think because I love the fact that you talked about that human piece. Because I
Mhm.
think so many times when we look at businesses and organizations, we see numbers, we see dollars, we see all these things. And of course they are important, but I think we sometimes forget that human aspect. So to understand the human part of business, the human part of being a CEO is something that's often overlooked. And I appreciate you for bringing that perspective.
Yeah, completely. I mean, oftentimes a lot of people get overwhelmed and they get burnt out. And so that's what happens. Like they just kind of like, forget it. I give up. The stream is dead and I do not want to resuscitate it. So I'm definitely no 905. It really does happen. It really does happen. And it's unfortunate, because it actually happened to me about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
I was doing another magazine. I was the editor in chief. And then I was wearing so many hats that after a while, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want the responsibility, and that's it. But between like 2010 and obviously 2020, I've learned a lot of things. And the biggest thing that I have learned is that you cannot do it all by yourself. You must have a team, and allow yourself the time to find the right people and invest in the right people.
That's really, really powerful. So do you feel like it was more of maybe just, I don't want to say exhaustion, that might be too strong of a word, but just being burnt out, not losing your passion for, the magazine and what it is that you created, but maybe wanting to change how exactly you wanted to execute on that? Do you think that that's what happened?
Oh yeah, definitely I got burnt out. Like, it's like the passion never left, but it's because that I was wearing so many hats and doing so many things and didn't really have the help, or somewhere along the way lost the drive to look for the help. It
Mm.
definitely does just kind of, it's like one of those things where you just throw all the papers up in the air and you're like, you know what?
I'm done.
I am done.
Nice. Well, no, that makes so much sense. And I appreciate you for bringing that up, because I think so many times, I think it's okay as well to do that, because I think entrepreneurship and business is a marathon as well. So understanding that only sounds like made you so much better when you walked into your next venture, because you understood some of the things that were, I guess, pain points or what were frustrations, and you took the steps to make sure that this time that wouldn't happen. So without that experience, you may not have been able to kind of do all the awesome things that you're doing with IMM.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely take it as a lesson learned, and I'm able to just relate to people better when they
Mhm.
say, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Let's talk about it here. If you lost your passion, that's a different story. Sometimes we put things on the back burner and then we realize that, hey, maybe I needed to be a stylist for a couple weeks to realize that I actually want to be a designer. That's different. That means your passion has shifted. And now if you're just burning yourself out, that means the passion is still there, but you're kind of causing your own downfall by not kind of aligning with certain things and not just being kind to yourself and giving yourself that mental stability that you need to be able to do your job.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely a real thing. And burnout is definitely real, especially for people that are truly passionate about what they do and are building, businesses and organizations. So definitely appreciate you for expounding upon that as well. So appreciate that. Appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, get a copy of the magazine, find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Yes. Well, definitely I will leave everyone with these parting words. And if you have a dream, if you have a passion, as cliche as it may sound, do not give up, but also utilize your resources. You cannot be a one-person show. So if you need to go out there and take advantage of YouTube, if you need to take advantage of classes that you need to pay for, please do so. Knowledge is power. And if you're opening a business, you're going to need as much of it as possible. And yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Innovative Minds Media, and our website is innovativemindsmedia.com. And we recently launched our major issue, so that's up there on the website as well.
Awesome. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you and get a copy of the magazine and hear about all the awesome things you're doing. But I definitely appreciate those parting words as well, too. Knowledge is definitely power. And I think especially when you are kind of working on your business, you want every kind of advantage you can have to be successful.
Mm-hmm. You need it all.
You do need it all. Yeah. Absolutely. But you can't do it all.
Right.
Exactly. You need it all, can't do it all. So that's what, so many tools and resources and people, as you kind of spoke to, are for. So definitely find ways to kind of, sharpen our saw so we can be better, but at the same time leverage and connect with and collaborate with others as well, too. So appreciate that reminder, Matia, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you so much for having me. You too.